Hey guys, in this tutorial we are going to see how to create very beautiful user interfaces using a cascading style sheet CSS library called Bootstrap. So it's available on getbootstrap.com, and CSSs can become like really complex and hairy, and for developers um, it can become very difficult to maintain non-standardized CSS. So if you look at Bootstrap CSS, let me see if this works. Um, if you look at the CSS, right, this is like a minified CSS, whole lot of code over there. And so why create your own basically if somebody else is doing all the good job for you? Okay, so that's point number one. And point number two is that we want to be able to create a responsive user interface. So basically, this is how the user interface is looking in your laptop screen or big screen. But if I switch to a smaller device, the user interface automatically adjusts to the device height or width. And so Bootstrap magically does all of this for us. So if I look at our employee REST application, we also had a web apps folder and we had our index.html over here. So we need to do certain things to enable Bootstrap. So if I go over here, right, I need to include this CSS. That's point number one. Okay. And in my head, okay, so let's have our body head and slash head tags properly. Okay. And we can just include the Bootstrap CSS like this. And Bootstrap may also use jQuery. So jQuery is again a library built using JavaScript that helps us interact with the web page programmatically in a much more easier manner. It's very popular. And so I'm just going to include these two over here. Okay. And I think we need one more thing. So if we go to get started, I think we also need a couple of other things. Here is a starter template. So we need doc type HTML declaration, lang equal to English. Oh, so HTML. All right. Let's also do one thing. Let's not use this editor. Let's use Sublime Text. And I'm going to open the right folder. All right, let's close this one. So we have doc type HTML declaration, and we have our HTML/HTML body head, and this is at the wrong place. Have it over here, and they're saying they require some meta tags. All right. So there you go. If anybody is interested, you can just go and Google and read more about these. And the jQuery script they have put at the end of the body. There is a reason for doing this because this helps the browser to load the UI first, start displaying something, and then load up the scripts. All right. Um, and this won't do much, but let's anyway run this and see what happens. Okay, so we want to go to /employee, and we see some of our fonts have changed, etc. So what Bootstrap also does is that every browser has its own font defaults, and Bootstrap will change them a bit. So the key thing about Bootstrap is its grid system, right? So every content that you have, you can arrange it into rows, and then you can break up rows into columns, right? Which is what you have over here: div class container, and then rows and columns, right? So let's just start coding, right? This class is getting defined by Bootstrap CSS. We didn't discuss classes in our previous tutorial on basic tutorial on CSS, but you can read more upon it. So we need a container, all right, /div, okay, and let's create a row. So what is a div? So just like all your HTML tags like form, h2, etc. If I just go over here and go to elements, all right. So see, I can highlight, right, these elements, and if you see, these are occupying certain height, space, width, uh, etc. Right? And div is just like a, you can say, just like a empty sort of an element, and using CSS you can decorate it in any which ways you want, and so that's like the choice, uh, or let's say like a building block that you can use in Bootstrap. So I've created a row, and then I need column. All right, so I can have column, and this column will by default use the entire width, but we had like three forms over here, so let's add some of these forms over here. Okay, um, so we have view all employees. Let me put it over here, and delete an employee. Let's put it over here. Okay, and view an employee. So let's do one thing. Let's break all of these into multiple rows itself, right? This is not looking that great. So /div, and I can have div class equal to row. One more. All right. And let's another one. Div class equal to row /div, and I'll just copy all of this inside here, and we need one more div for viewing an employee. All right, and let me just copy this inside it, right, and view an employee. And finally I had my starting container div, and so I can have this. So container div basically does all the magic. This class container um, essentially helps in creating responsive user interfaces. And within the container, I have my rows and I have my columns. All right, so let me just have a look at this view, all employees, all employee, and then I need to be able to add an employee. All right, so I think that should do it. Um, Let me just put some comments. Container and then row and so sometimes such comments helps us understand what that specific tag was for and where does it end. All right, we won't see much magic yet, but anyway, let's try and see what happens. Okay, so now if you see, everything has been aligned to the right a little bit. I not having proper titles, add view all employees. So um, maybe I deleted something inadvertently. So view employees, view an employee. I think there was a row for deleting an employee. So delete an employee and yeah. And also our employee application is not looking nice over here. So let's add another div and inside the column let's put our h1 over here. All right, just compressing some of this code so that it's a little bit more readable. Okay, all right, and let's save this. Let's also do one thing. We have done a little bit of code change, so let's check in this code. Get add minus a, get commit minus m, added a bootstrap and jQuery library and REST APIs. I'm going to push this. Okay, so let's restart our application. All right, now if you see, everything is nicely arranged. View all employees, view employees, view employees. And it's still not really that pretty. So first of all, let's fix our forms. So if you go to Bootstrap and search for forms, okay, see how nicely all the forms are over here, right? So we're not going to use any of these. Let's select this template, all right? And again, it is using all these various divs and labels, etc., to make the forms pretty. Now, I know how all of this works. I just want to show you, but you should, at the end of the day, do your own research and try to play around with these forms and see how everything is working. So I have our form. Okay, what do we need? ID, name, and age. So ID, name, and let's add one more. Sorry, age. All right. So it's we don't need input type equal to password because it hides the text that you write. Okay, we'll just say type equal to text over here, and ID is input age. So it's saying it's label for this input. Enter name and placeholder equal to enter ID. All right. Then here ID will be input ID. We'll say it's a placeholder for ID. In input name and placeholder for input name. Okay, and let's still keep all of these things as it is. We're going to modify some of these things when we are learning about jQuery. And we don't need this slash form. And what to do about the button? If button type equal to submit, and we can give classes also to decorate the button. So this is inside the form, and I'll just say add, let's say submit. Okay, for now the thing with all this HTML and especially Bootstrap is that every once in a while you will miss, a double quote. You'll paste an extra double quote, or you'll miss a quote, double quote, or you will not properly close an input tag or a div, and these sort of things can happen, and only like experts can basically try a way to debug them. So right now this all looks good. Let us say we restart our Jetty server and see what happens. Okay, well, as you see, this is looking relatively nicer. All right. I mean, this is like way too long. We don't want that. And again, my ID is not getting highlighted, so let's fix that. It's basically because it was read only. And so understand this, the grid system tries to take as much space as available, and so let's say it is occupying maybe only half of the page. So I'll just say col 6. Okay, and let's try this once again. Right, so now it looks better. This thing is not fixed yet. Let's see what's the issue. Placeholder, I have my class, let's just call it frame control. Just trying to make it the same as other inputs. Let's try one more time. All of these classes, button primary, form control, all of this is coming from Bootstrap. right? Now it looks much nicer. And so now let's basically do this for other forms as well, right? So we have get and all of these things. So let me just copy this over here. We don't need 3 rows, we need the button definitely, and we need the ID. So we'll just keep it as it is. Method, we'll just keep it as get for now. All right. And we're just going to copy this over here. Okay. So let's try this once again if that worked. Right, so enter ID, view an employee, delete an employee, and I want my call 6 over everywhere else. Okay. This is not the nicest of the views. Bootstrap gives us all the libraries to reorganize our user interface. This is not the nicest. At the end of this tutorial, maybe I'll publish another tutorial that just tries to create like a really good user interface. The idea of this tutorial is just to show you the power of Bootstrap. Another thing is this nav bar, right? So this is looking really nice. So we have nav bar over here. So we are going to create a nice nav bar with some links. Let's try this out. And the way you do it is, this should not be inside the container, and we have our employee application over here. We'll just say incref employee application just to do a little bit of good branding. We can remove this one, and they have some logos over here. So let's see if we can go to incref. We have our own logo over here. I'm going to copy this and save as an image. All right, here. So let's say logo.jpg. All right, I hope it's there. Yeah. And now I'll just say logo.jpg, and let's just leave it as employee application. And I want to add a few more links also, maybe for some future use. So I have my A, all right. And so maybe I could just copy some of these things over here. All right. So, okay, so home features, pricing, or whatever, right? Now let's see what happens. I got my employee application all right. The logo really looks bad, and I'm not seeing some of the other things. So let me just debug this and see what happened. Well, I think I missed maybe some tag or something, but what I did was from here, I just copied this entire code, and then now let's try to work our way. So I copied this entire code, all right, just as it is. And now if you look at the Inkref application, the navbar looks pretty okay. Now let's try to insert our logo. And so what do we have here? I'll just copy this A as it is. And also I'm not liking this light color. We'll also change that. Right, let's stop the application. And from here, um, let's include our anchor properly. And we need a logo.jpg. And I'm going to remove the width and the height. I think that was creating some problem last time. And we don't need this, and we want to say employee application, right? Let's see, and let's also remove this disabled list item, and let's try to run and see what happens. All right, so this is looking slightly better, not that great, um, but you get the idea, right? And so this is our page, and now I want to make this page look much nicer. Basically, how our final application will look like. All right. So first of all, whenever we want to view all employees, we don't want to have a link. Okay. So we are going to use tables. All right. So here is a Bootstrap table. Um, let's use a sample table to include all our employees, right? So let's just have div class equal to row, all right, slash div, and let's remove uh, view an employee or delete an employee, because you're going to provide links in our table rows to do just that later, right? So here's our table, and we have ID, name, and age. Okay, and let's remove all of these. So, let's put some IDs over here just to see how it will look. So one. Sorry guys for the disturbance. There is some construction happening on the ground floor of our office. So let's say Romil, Jan, age 30, Rajal, Jan, age 31, and let's say oops, Anisha Jan, age, let's say that's my daughter's name, let's say 7. All right, and we also want to be able to delete right from here. So actions. All right, so we can have edit or delete. All right. So this is how all the employee details will look like. Uh, we we uh, we want like a nicer form to add things up. So right now it's occupying like a lot of space vertically, and I just thought it will be nice to have it horizontally, right? So let's see if this does that trick. Inside the form, let's have class equal to form inline, right? Let's see if this works. And I'll just remove this header over here. I'll just say add employee to just add. All right, uh, let's see. Yeah, this looks much nicer, except that things have gone a little bit haywire. Um, so from group, um, let's see. I have my form inline, maybe because I have form group as row over here. I'm going to remove all of these, and I have labels over here. Okay, and let's see if this works, and let's make this as column 12 so that it occupies the entire space, and our table also as oh, we need a column over here, so div class equal to column 12. Okay, and then slash div. So UI development often requires a bit of hit and trial because you don't know how it's going to look. Uh, it requires a lot of experience to sort of reduce development effort. But there you go, right? I have my ID name, age. I can add things up, and in future I can have my actions over here. My employee application is up here. It's not looking that nice. I might need some space. So we can maybe add another row. All right, and we need to include a blank space. So I'll just say and nbsp semicolon. That's a HTML character code for space, and my employee application. This text is kind of centered. Maybe um, maybe to beautify it, I can add another li over here. Okay, and I can just remove this stuff and say employee application over here. Let's see how it looks. All right. Okay, refresh, but not still not looking that great. But anyway, This is something you guys can figure out on your own. And now I have my links over here which are pointing to hash. If you see at the status bar below, let's add some pages, home features and pricing. So let's create a new file. Let's say features.html, and I'll just say here features HTML page, and then pricing HTML. Alright, so pricing HTML page, and from here I can just say features.html and pricing.html, and let's just remove the home link from here because we don't need it. And in here we can just say index.html. All right. Another thing that I want to show you is that in tables you can also have tables with alternate colors, and yeah, we can just say table striped in our table code. Okay, class equal to table striped. So let's save this and run this again and see what happens. Okay, now this all striped. I go to features, I can go to the feature page, I can go to the pricing page, and this just reloads this page. Now I want to add, so we'll look at it later. Delete, and yeah, all of these we'll try to do through jQuery and our REST APIs that we create in these servlets. You can also do a lot of things with Bootstrap. Let me show you modal. So right now, if you see, my form is embedded into the page, and because that's what I thought would look great. But you can also create pop-ups like this. So let's say launch demo modal, and you can ask the user to fill the form inside the modal. You can create different types of buttons with different colors. We use all of this in our company. You can have tooltips. So right, see, there are these tooltips, badges. All of these have different UI sort of elements, or UX elements rather, that what your user experience is like. If I go into text, right, you can align texts left, center, right, wrap text, you can provide breaks, you can also transform everything to uppercase or lowercase or capitalized, control the fonts, right? So yeah, there is a lot that Bootstrap gives you in terms of how to create your UI in a standardized way and make it look more professional and beautiful. So finally, before I go, I'll just do git add -a git status updated UI and push. All right.